Greetings, 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 greetings. Akhmostist the Compostist here, and welcome to Compost and Causations. Let me check my sounds real quick. All right, so we're good. We're good. First things first, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, click the notification bell. And yeah, let's get on the same page with that. That helps to grow the channel. That helps to boost the subscriber count, get the minutes up so we can reach our goal before year's end, which is literally 14 days away. So let's get as many as we can. 1,000 is ideal, and that's the goal. We are moving forth. So that is that. And let's do this. Boom. Let's make that go away. All right. Now, we are here today. Happy December the 17th, 2022. Smack dab in the middle of the month. And what a year, what a month it's been. And yeah, we are going to get right into it. So without any further ado, let's do this. Let me see. Let's get this up on the screen. I'll get this up on the screen. Just a moment. Bear with me. There we go. There she goes. There she goes again. All right. So, as you see on the screen, this particular broadcast today is called Death and Decomposition Equals More Life. Yes. And if we go to, give me just a moment. Let's do this real quick. And yeah, we're still doing the, we're not doing the seeing my face just yet. That will be coming soon again at some point in the very near future. It's a little bit better. So that's there. Just getting a few things in order. Okay. Now, all right. Let's see something. Give me just a moment, you all. How's everybody composting going? How's everybody doing? Yeah? You good? Awesome. Good to hear. So, let me do this real quick. I want to put the description in the feed for you to see. So let's do that real quick. This particular broadcast is going to be a sensitive topic matter one, because we're talking about death and decomposition. And death is never really an easy topic to speak about, because it hits close to home for a lot of us, if not all of us, because it's something that we're all going to face eventually at some point, because we all experience birth at some point. And the process of being born might not be as locked into our memory banks as the process of dying may be. So something to consider, and something that is something that you can think about and plan for a bit more as well. Let's close that out. So very, very sensitive, especially because we've had loved ones who are near and dear to us, make that transition. And it could be something that was recent. It could be something that was a while ago. Yet, it's still close to home. So, and it's definitely something that I'm experiencing firsthand, earlier this year. have my beloved father make that transition. So it's real, definitely real, and it's still raw for me and my family. So, you know, it yeah, it's real. So, with that being said, now that we have the description there, we're going to move forward. As the description says, in relation to this particular broadcast, death and decomposition equals more life. We have, what is the best method for us as composters to employ for what happens to our bodies upon physical death? Which method should we choose that is safe, wholesome, and legal? Let's examine one method in particular that has caught my attention. Let's have the conversation now so that we can focus on living in our best life while we're still here. So, the reason why this topic matter is freshly on my mind is what it is I just shared in terms of this has been a year of, elder family members making that transition from my father, to some grand aunt, to a grand aunt, to Kevin Samuels, to, my grandmother transitioning, August of 2021. So, it's still newer. It's a newer experience for me. And also, one of my beloved biological sisters, said that maybe I should think about getting this training that's happening in somewhere in the Southwest in February. That is like an end of life training. And she said that I'd be great at it because I was at the head of planning and handling and directing my father's homegoing, in terms of the obituary and the run of show and the what had to be done upon his passing. That was primarily directed by me, and so that went very, very well and was very successful and empowering and impactful. And I've been through a few different rites of passages, formally and informally, and that was one of them as well. So she thought that I'd be a good fit for that particular training. So that's why it's fresh on my mind. And this came to me as just moving throughout my day, and in terms of what composting is. Let me see if I have the definition up here. Yes, let's make this larger. Let's go like this. Okay, let's center this. So, right. All right. Definition. Let's put this up top. Okay. Boom. Like that. We're doing this in real time because that's just how we do it. What the moment calls for. So composting is, so it's like, what is composting? Composting is a process of decomposition of organic matter by microorganisms under controlled conditions. I would even posit in and add this in, based upon the setting and situations. I would say also macroorganisms. Macroorganisms. Did I spell that correctly? Let's see. There we go. So under control conditions. So it's the process of decomposing things, breaking that organic matter, such as, something that was once alive. and had relative consciousness. I mean, everything in nature has consciousness on some level, but in terms of something that came from a seed, an egg, that's what we're primarily talking about, be it a plant, be it a piece of fruit, a vegetable, an animal, a tree. These are all things that came from seeds at some point, you know. Um, and so that would be classified as organic matter, something that was born and went through a process of dying. Um, Microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, that would be microorganisms, macroorganisms, could be, the different kinds of um, bugs that you see, the fruit fly, um, larva, or, different kinds of larvae that you may see in a composting pile, to hoppers, to, you might see centipedes, you know, um, definitely worms, red wigglers. So those are some of the kinds of macroorganisms, more entities or things that you can see with your eyes moving about in a pile. In contrast to micro, you'd need a microscope to see all the different bacteria and fungi moving about doing their thing. So both have their place. Um, and when it says under control conditions, that means that essentially a human being has stepped in and has created a situation or environment for that decomposition to best take place. So be that on a composting site. Let's do this. Be that on a composting site, where the decomposition process from start to finish is in a certain area of the site. There's certain tools that are used. There's a certain steps that are taken, on a day-to-day or quote unquote weekly, or as we say here, strongly basis, to further decompose that organic matter safely and legally. So that would be on a composting site, or it could be in your garden, or it can be in your kitchen, in a composting bin, in a tumbler, things of that sort. It's controlled because you have a human being who is inserting their intelligence and their technique upon that pile of organic matter that is decomposing, versus you just, throwing a pile out in the forest somewhere. Uh, those aren't under control conditions. Now, those are under natural control conditions where nature is going to take its course. But since we're speaking from the human lens, we wouldn't consider that to be controlled conditions, because Mother Nature or nature has variables or can be unpredictable. Whereas when there's control conditions that human beings can step in and employ, for the most part, we have more of a say so and more control with what's going on in that decomposition process. All right. So again, composting is a process of decomposition of organic matter by microorganisms and macroorganisms under controlled conditions. So we have the description with what this particular broadcast is about. We have the definition of what composting is. And now we're going to get into the meat of the matter. So let's embolden all of these. And we're going to take this question by question, and we are going to have a conversation. So I invite you to join in. I invite you to leave a comment, and I invite you to, share your thoughts. All right, boom. So that's there. That's the primary focus at the present moment. Okay, pardon any background or outside noise. There's some roof work being done a few houses away. And yeah, I'm in a neighborhood. I'm in a suburban, beautiful neighborhood at the present moment. A little bit different than where I usually am. Okay, so getting into it, it says, let me just do this real quick. All right. It says, we are familiar with this as it pertains to composting produce or even animal protein. Instead of saying, animal carcasses or pieces of meat, we're going to say animal protein. Yet are we familiar? I don't like the fact that familiar has the word liar in it, but we'll keep it moving. We are familiar with this as it pertains. Familiar with this as it pertains to. There we go. Get that correct. We are familiar with this as it pertains to composting produce or even animal protein. Yet, are we familiar with the decomposition of human bodies upon death? Death is not a word that I use often, but for the attention grabbing, we're going to use that in the title and in this conversation. And it's easily understandable. So, the ending of the physical body being animated. It's another way to say it. So the soul and the spirit has essentially left or is leaving the body or has left the body, and there's no more animation. So the body is still and rigor mortis begins. So that is death. Are we familiar with the human bodies upon death and that decomposition process? So let's take a moment to think about that. And if we are familiar with the decomposition of human bodies upon death, how familiar are we with that process? How familiar are we? Most people know that once we transition, we get picked up by the ambulance or the morgue, and then we're put in the ice box. And then from there, several things could happen. At some point, we're put in the casket. And then at some point, we're put, in the ground in the casket. That's the general Western way of handling the body upon death. However, there are other ways to go about it. Let's explore that. What are the possibilities? What methods can take place to best handle this process? So when we ask what are the possibilities, we're saying what are the possibilities as it pertains to the different ways that decomposition. Let's actually just do this. Do this on the screen. Different ways that decomposition can take place. It's a little larger. Let's just at least make it bold. How's that? Okay. That works, right? And let's still make that a little larger. Let's do it like this. Okay. Different ways that decomposition can take place. The choices that we have to choose from. What it is I just stated about us being in a casket or something of that sort. That's the run of the mill. That's the Western way. We're pretty much familiar with it. We've seen it a billion times. Not a billion. We've seen it a lot. You've seen it on film. You may have seen it in real life. You hear about it. You bear witness to it. So we're expanding upon that as the only possibility and the only technique upon which the body can be handled upon death. So there's different ways that decomposition can take place. And what are those possibilities? What are those methods? So the next question is, what methods can take place to best handle this process? Some of us may we all have our own peculiarities, our own particularities, and some of us may not want our bodies, put in an ice box in a mortuary, or the morgue afterwards. Some of us may want our body, we may want the process from start to finish in terms of once we pass on into the time that we're in the ground or the homegoing ceremony is done, we might want that to be 48 to 72 hours. Some of us, we're not concerned about that. We're more concerned about the homegoing and the ceremony process. And so if it takes, 7 days or it's 10 days, then that's just what it takes. But we all have our own particularities. And with that being said, whichever method we choose, whichever one of the possibilities we choose, that can determine the decomposition process that takes place in terms of how long that will take and what the end result is. And so I want to explore here today the choices that we have to choose from. All right. Is that cool? So let's move forth. The options. What are the options? Let's do this. You're not supposed to be seeing some of this. Let's do this. Boom, bold. Let's center it. Let's make it a little bigger. So that's there. So when we talk about, let's do it one by one. When we talk about, let's do this. What are the possibilities, right? So what are the possibilities? One possibility is that we can choose to get cremated. What is cremation? Cremation is, upon death, the body is put in a furnace and turned to ash, after a few hours. And then that ash is then put in an urn, which is an encasement to hold the ashes. It can be, metal. It's mostly metal or, stainless steel, some hardened material to store the remaining ashes in. And then you can have that in your home. You can separate the ashes and put it in different urns in different people's homes, or you can choose to do a ceremony or ritual with it. And if the person wished for the ashes to be dispersed upon their favorite river or in their favorite park or around a tree, you have that option of doing that. And so that's what the cremation process is. You are burned. Your body is burned. Your dead body is burned and made into ashes. So that's what cremation is. Now, as you saw in the notes, said I saw this in real time because my father chose the option to be cremated, and so he wanted that to be the way that he was handled. That's the option that he chose. That's the possibility that he chose. That's the method that he chose. And me and some other family members were able to bear witness to the beginnings of the actual cremation of my father's physical body after he had passed on. And it's possible, should you choose this method, if you choose this method, you can actually see the cremation process, or at least be near where the body is being cremated in like a waiting room area. With us, we were able to get like special treatment and actually, escort my father's remaining vessel out of the hearse and, wheel him up to the furnace and, crank up the machinery and put him in the furnace. And then we were there for the first few minutes. We were able to bear witness to the burning of his body. So this is put fire to burn body in a furnace. Then after it got a bit too intense because, ashes started to surround and fill the air around us. And it just visually became way more intense. That's when it was like, okay, we have to step away. We were, asked to step away. And yeah, the furnace was closed, and we came back, several hours later, and took it from there. So that's cremation as an option. All right. Moving on to another option. Let's bring this up. We have immolation. What is immolation? Immolation is similar to cremation, except that it is the burning of the body. Let's do this. It is the burning of the body while still alive and causes death. Burning of the body while still alive and causes death. So that's immolation. Self-immolation, whatever the case may be, that's when you light yourself on fire and you literally begin to cremate yourself as you are alive until you die. And when you die, your body burns and it turns to, ashes. Usually not burning long enough to turn to complete ashes, because usually somebody puts it out. And so you still have, the remains of the body that may have charred, skin and flesh on bone. And then whatever happens from there is whatever happens from there. Unless it's immolation in a natural setting and whatever fuel is used is just burning, burning, burning. You saw the note there that said that this method is not preferred. Now, this method is, let's add some notes here. For the cremation, let's put, I've witnessed this. Then for the immolation, let's put spiritual reasons, form of protest, so it could be various reasons as to why somebody does an immolation. There's, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, I apologize, but a certain sector of Buddhism or Buddhist monks have been known to immolate themselves as a form of spirituality and mind over matter, or a very, very sacred way to transition. This is what, some of them have chosen to do. I'm not saying that it's widely used or widespread. I've just heard about it. Maybe I've seen a video or two or read some things about it, where, a monk somewhere has chosen to immolate or self-immolate and be in a certain posture or position, a sacred posture and position while, sitting to do that. So there's spirituality attached to it. It can also be a form of protest. And you saw my note in terms of, in modern times, in the modern world, this is not something that I recommend. I am familiar with this because, speaking about composting, the person who started the composting site that I used to help run along with my mentor and another coworker, he self-immolated himself. His name is David Buckle, and he's a legendary person, in the law field and in the composting field. And he did a self-immolation of himself to protest fossil fuels. He did it, he did it as an expression of several things, but one of the main things was to protest fossil fuels. And this is why his method and his technique on the composting site was not fossil fuel based. And he truly believed in his heart of hearts that the best way to compost organic matter, produce primarily, and things that are not in human form and in animal form, was to use hand tools and to rely upon human power, the community, by way of volunteers being guided to, do the decomposition of that organic matter. And then you come back some months later and it's finished compost, either sifted or unsifted, to be used on, the plants in front of your house, the plants in your backyard, the trees in your neighborhood, or your house plants or your garden plants, as a soil fertilizer, as a nutrient rich soil amendment. So that was his mindset and that was his way of being. And I suppose that he was very, very fed up with the world being so reliant on fossil fuels, and with those in the composting field being so reliant on fossil fuels, gasoline, to just be so significant in our daily life. And so for him, sustainability is key, and he thought that the best way to go about that was not relying on fossil fuel usage. Now, that is a very, very extreme way of protesting, and how he went about it. But I'll just leave it at that. So he did it for, I think he may have also been a Buddhist as well. So there's no coincidence that he chose that method. If I'm incorrect, I apologize, but I recall that being his form of spirituality or religion, or something that he tapped into or that he was aware of very heavily. So it was spiritual, but it was definitely as a form of protest. And I just don't recommend most human beings do that, because most of us will transition physically, and there's no place legally for you to self-immolate, and it literally is suicide as well. So we can put that in the note. Put form of suicide. And I'm not a proponent of suicide. I'm definitely more empathetic of people who have chosen that method. I can overstand and empathize with them, but I don't agree with that wholeheartedly at this time. I think that, you should maximize your potential, and this planet and the people that you know, or even those that you don't know on this planet, can be your medicine and your healing power to help you get through a challenging time, a challenging life. And that things, for the most part, for most of us, things can and will get better. We just have to, create that support system or find that support system. And so to have life is a very, very precious thing, and it's not to be taken lightly. So I think that you should maximize your potential. We're all going to go anyway at some point. So I'd say don't, as long as you can be here doing good work, do good work. So, all right. So that's immolation, burning of the body while still alive, and causes death. You would do it for, it's a form of suicide. It's a form of protest, and it happens for spiritual reasons as well. Spiritual reasons. All right. Up next, we have, let's do this. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. All right. Let's have that be its own thing. All right. The casket in earth is unnatural. Let's put a note here. Most common way that we know in the Western world. All right. Just put the casket. I posit that it is unnatural. I think that because we are bioorganisms, meaning that we are a conglomerate of organisms that are a conglomerate of cells, that are a conglomerate of atoms and protons and neutrons, all of that. So we are a living entity. We are walking and breathing, um, and in a physical body that has a spirit and soul. But we are an organism. We are a biological organism, and so we're constantly decomposing. We shed skin. We shed dead skin. That's why you can get ashy. You can scrape your skin and skin will fall off. So that's constant every time that you bathe. That what you see coming off is not just dirt, and soot. It's also dead skin, dead particles, hair follicles, and so we're constantly, shedding and decomposing. When you go to the bathroom, that's composting. When you eat, you're juicing. You are satiating, and you're decomposing the organic matter that was a solid or semi-solid with your teeth, and you're breaking it down so that you can extract the liquid. And so that juice is what goes into your bloodstream, what feeds your cells, feeds your organisms, feeds your organs, and the remaining pulp or fiber that goes through your small intestine and then your larger intestine and comes out of your anus. That's compost. If you were a cow, they'd call it manure. So there's also such a thing known as human manure. That's your crap. That's your shit. That's your doo-doo. That's compost. And so I'm saying that we are composting, we are a living machine, and we are a decomposing machine. And it's happening concurrently. So because you came out of your mother's womb, your mother and father had to cooperate, and you came out of her womb, you're natural. And so you came from the mother, and you should go back to the mother earth, that is. And so I think that your body should naturally be able to decompose, and the microorganisms, as we mentioned, and the macroorganisms, as we mentioned, should be able to do their work to decompose you and turn you back into a kind of soil and nutrient, either clay or soil, however it is you think about it. That's the natural process. And I think that anything else outside of that is unnatural. So to be put in a suit or some clothing and makeup put on and be dressed up and be put in a casket that is plastic, metal, steel, fiberglass. It's not something that is earthen made naturally, or it's been adjusted by men, for you to be put into the dirt that way and just, sit there for months and decompose that way. Now, granted, microorganisms and macroorganisms are going to do their job regardless. They're going to get to you because they're coming out of you. However, you're still in some man-made cushioned thing for the decomposition process. It just seems unnatural. And it seems also very capitalistic. You got to spend all this money to be put in to buy a casket and then put in the casket, and, all of the processes that involves, and, the casket being lowered and all of that stuff. So I consider that to be a bit more unnatural. So let's say a bit more unnatural. All right. And it's the most common way that we know in the Western world. And as we know, the Western world doesn't have, in some ways, they got the best ways, and in a lot of ways, they're not the best ways. So that's the casket approach. We could even say this approach is most capitalistic. How about that? More capitalistic, right? Like this. We do that. Yeah, let's do that here as well. All right. So, okay, that's the casket. Now, moving onward to another method. Let's do this, boom, boom, boom. Mummification. We can do this. Say this is an ancient method. It's an ancient method. It is spiritual. Oh, I remember my spelling today. It is, in a way, supernatural. I say that because this method is ancient because, the culture that is most known for mummification are the ancient Egyptians. And ancient Egypt going back thousands of years. And some scholars posit tens of thousands of years. So very ancient, but not just the Egyptians, other cultures as well. But we're going to focus in on Egypt for this topic matter. So it's an ancient method. It was spiritually based because it delved into the how the people in ancient Egypt saw life and saw the afterlife and the role of spirituality or religion, but more so spirituality, like what role that played in it. What is your connection to the cosmos? What is your connection to the Most High? What is your connection to nature or source energy that you may call it? So the cosmology that the ancient Egyptians created, this method of being handled, your body remains being handled upon your physical death. Mummification was the method that they chose that made the most sense for them. So it's ancient, it's spiritual, and it's also supernatural because they subscribe to the afterlife, meaning that there will, there's a life after this physical life that you will be conscious in, and in some way resurrection, in the sense that at some point years later, even if it's thousands of years later, you will be resurrected and be born again upon planet Earth and be in another body, or your spirit, your essence, your energy will be, your soul, if I'm correct, will be in another body. But who you are and your greatness will still be you. You will just be resurrected in the same body that you were mummified in, or you will reincarnate. If I'm correct, please correct me, leave a comment. And or most importantly, there's a life after this physical life. And so that's why, the organs were extracted from the body and put in its own sarcophagus. And there was a whole process and ritual that took place in the mummification process with, oils, essential oils, and, and then you were wrapped and you were put in your sarcophagus, which is a kind of casket or coffin, but this is more elaborate, has more natural materials, in terms of, could be gold, could be stone, mortar, depending upon your class in ancient Egypt. So yeah, and it's supernatural because anytime you talk about rebirth, reincarnation, and the afterlife, that is the supernatural, the spiritual and the supernatural. So mummification, ancient method. Let's put here ancient Egyptian, and we're gonna spell Egyptian this way. Okay. I'm gonna go with the I instead of the Y. And for those who know the deeper sciences, you know why. So moving onward, mummification. Now most of us in this world today, our lives are not aligned with being able to be mummified. In terms of culturally, spiritually, financially, regionally, it's not something that would be easily accomplished. So, but it's still possible. So it still is a possibility, as I mentioned earlier. What did we say? As we mentioned earlier, we spoke about what are the possibilities, what methods can take place to best handle this process. Mummification was definitely a process. And so it's still an option for you to choose amongst the others mentioned. And so as we move onward, up next we have shroud. I'll say this is probably the most simple method. Shroud wrapping in cloth. So to shroud the body is to, after you've cleaned the vessel. For Muslims, that would be janaza. And after you've, put some essential oils on the body to make it smell good and just to adorn it. And, it's a way of still showing appreciation and acknowledgement and reverence of the physical body, by putting something that smells good on it. And an essential oil, a sacred oil is always key. So after you wash and put some of that on it, then you want to wrap the body in a sacred cloth. Or a cloth of your liking, the more popular ones is probably something that's tan or white. And, that's actually what we did for our father. My father is, before the cremation process, we did the wash and shroud method, utilizing what it is I just mentioned. And yeah, but we didn't just put him in the ground after that. We, made sure that he got his wish granted and he was cremated. But for the shrouding was more so wrapped in cloth. And then this is the most simple method. Once you're wrapped in cloth, you're placed within the earth. You're placed within the earth. Simple. That means that a hole is dug. Once that hole is dug, it needs to be deep enough for one. 3 feet may not be deep enough. I think that's bare minimum. It might be 6 feet, might be 9 feet. You might want to go in vertically instead of horizontally. But at some point, after you've been washed, adorned, and wrapped in the cloth, you are then put or placed in the earth for the macroorganisms and the microorganisms to do their work in decomposing your body and turning it back into nutrient-rich soil. From the earth you came, from the earth you shall return, especially if you subscribe to the biblical ideologies. We're from the earth. And so it's what we're made of, or when the Most High made us, that's what the Most High chose to make us from or with. And so upon that's how we started. And so how we end is we're going to be turned back into earth and become one with the earth and the elements again. So being placed in the earth, the most simple method, and that's it. Now obviously your bones will remain, in contrast to cremation, where your bones are essentially burned, and if they have to be assisted in being crushed a bit, then that's what will happen. So yeah, shroud, that's an option. I've always thought about like what are my favorite, or which are like my top three, and there's an order, but I'm not going to share that order at this time. And it's always been, shroud into the earth or cremation. However, we're going to do this. We're going to examine this question. Let's make this a little larger. And let's take a little musical intermission. Let's take a little musical intermission. All right, getting back into it. Getting back into it. This is another method that I am now seriously considering. It says let's examine a newer technique of bodily composting slash decomposition in a pod or vessel. The company is called Recompose. Let's examine. Now, disclaimer, let's just put this here. Disclaimer, I am not being compensated, nor have I asked or been asked by anyone to advertise this company, this, or the method, technique that they use. Put that there. Okay, let's do this. Put that in red. Disclaimer. I am not being compensated, nor have I asked or been asked by anyone to advertise this company or the method or technique that they use. That is my disclaimer. I am sharing this company's method and technique because I find it very interesting. I'm very curious about it as I learn more. And I support us being innovative as a human race, as a human family, innovative and inventative. I may have just invented that word. So I support that. And so I think that I know that we are at the apex, and tomorrow will be another apex. And then the following day will be another apex. We're at the apex of our knowledge of the history, or the herstory, or our history of this planet. And so we have, for the most part, all knowledge at our fingertips in some capacity, be it being able to access it, in the physical or the non-physical realm, in the seen or the unseen realm. So it's all led up to this point. All of humans being on this planet and all of what's transpired on this planet has led us up to this point. And so anytime we as humans are creating or being innovative, it at least deserves some attention to be given to it to, critically examine what's being done here. And as a composter, I find this particular method and technique to be very, very interesting. And so with that being said, we're going to do this. So let me do this. I'm gonna, just a moment. Boom, 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 boom. Here we go, right here. All right. There we go. So I'm now sharing my screen, and you can now see it. So this is a company called Recompose, and we're going to go through their process. Now, how did I find out about this company? I want to say on Instagram, somebody sent me a link a few months ago. This may be the same company, might be a different company, but I think it's the same company because what came to mind first was Seattle, Washington. And this is something that was probably first introduced to me maybe, I mean, I had the thought about this probably like 4 years ago, as I became a composter. And then I started to see some companies that were doing something similar where, you'd be put in a pot or a vessel of some sort and decomposition would happen. And I think that it's been shared with me like 2, 3 different companies that do this. And so one or two of those companies were shared with me on Instagram a few months ago. And I think this was one of them. And so it's becoming more and more a reality, meaning that more and more people are choosing to utilize this method upon their physical transition. And it's being put more and more on my radar. And with my most recent rites of passages around, dealing with death and healing, as I mentioned earlier to start the broadcast, this is very, very real to me and very, very intriguing. So, as I was doing some research earlier, I located them, and they're called Recompose. What are they? They are a full service funeral home specializing in human composting. Recompose works directly with you and the people in your life to ensure respectful, empathetic service from the time of death through the body's transformation into soil. All right. So as we scroll down, you saw their contact information. Soil to soil, picture the forest floor, rich earth continually replenished by fallen trees, dry leaves, and bright moss. New roots reach through each layer, drawing nutrients into branches high above. Recompose uses the principles of nature to transform our dead into soil. All right, so as we scroll down, you see all the earthen material. Great website. A relationship with death. Death is an essential part of life. It is as remarkable in its own way as birth. The end of life, though heart-wrenching, can be beautiful. Talking about our mortality can be comforting, and death care can be both straightforward and healing. As we scroll down, so we're getting a synopsis of what this company is about, what they do, and also learning about decomposition and death equals more life, as they mention, or as they're insinuating. Life after death. Healthy soil is vital for an ecosystem to thrive. It regulates moisture, sequesters carbon, and sustains plants, animals, and humans. Recompose was born from research on the soil cycle. Soil created by Recompose will nurture growth on the same forest floor that inspired its creation, allowing us to give back to the earth that nourishes us all our lives. So they're going through one by one category. Okay. They're located Seattle, Washington. You see it right there. Right? About Recompose. Recompose is a licensed full-service green funeral home in Seattle offering human composting as the first human composting company in the world. We are a trusted leader in ecological death care. We are Seattle's only human composting provider and serve clients across the U.S. And so that's that. And then we have land acknowledgement. Recompose acknowledges we make our lives and livelihoods on the lands of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Duwamish people. We honor with gratitude the Duwamish people, past and present, the land itself, and the Duwamish tribe. Colonization is an active, persistent process. Indigenous communities continue to be resilient in protecting their ecological and cultural lifeways and deathways despite ongoing oppression. Recompose respects, shares, and supports this commitment to climate healing and environmental justice. Join Recompose in contributing to Real Ret Duamish. This is powerful. This is very, very powerful because not only are we dealing with decomposition, which has been done since the beginning of time, but in a controlled manner that I mentioned earlier with human beings doing it. It's a very ancient method as we've already went over, and this land that we're on, in the U.S. of A. is quote unquote stolen land from the First Nations people who were here, those who have brown to dark skin, and so the acknowledgement of giving back to the people, acknowledging their existence first off, acknowledging their culture, acknowledging their contributions, and continually finding a way to acknowledge all of those things and give back or give forward to them. That's doing the good work. That's doing the healing that needs to happen on planet Earth, the healing that needs to happen to the earth, with the earth, and the healing that needs to happen with us as human beings. And so I credit. I didn't know about this. This is my first time viewing what it is we're viewing right now. And so to find that out about this company is very, very heartwarming because it's literally doing the work. It's giving back and giving forward, keeping the cycle of healing going. So peace and love to this company, and peace and love to the Duwamish people. All right. So that's that. All right. Now we went through ecological, went through who they are, went through learning more, and now we're going to get into the menu. So much to get into. We're not going to get into everything. Let's go with. Should we get into who we are? Let's get into our services. Okay. We work closely with you and your people to ensure respectful, empathetic service from time of death through the body's transformation into soil. We are here for you. Whether a death has already occurred or is imminent, please contact us. At the time of death, after death has occurred, take the time you need with your loved one's body. When you are ready, our staff will help you understand your options, answer questions, and at your convenience, take your person's body into our care. And so, from the ceremony to celebrate your person to using your loved one's soil to nurture growth, we aim to make death care healing and nourishing. The process, laying in ceremony, we offer a laying in ceremony, or a green funeral that allows you the opportunity to honor your loved one with care and respect, much like the moment when a body is interred in the earth during a burial. The laying in represents a moment of transition. Our experienced services team can help you plan your person's laying in every step of the way. Soil transformation. Your loved one's body will be surrounded by wood chips, alfalfa, and straw in a vessel where microbes will naturally break the body down. There goes the microorganisms, microbes. The entire process from placing your person into the vessel to finished soil takes between 6 to 8 weeks, or as we say here, strongs. Giving back. Once complete, similar to ashes from cremation, the soil can be used however you choose to enrich a garden, plant a tree, or spread across multiple locations. If you prefer not to keep all or any of the soil, we will donate it to Bell's Mountain, 700 acres of conserved land in southern Washington State, that is. It has some pricing. They strive to be transparent in their pricing. Recompose strives to be straightforward and transparent about our pricing. It is our goal that you will never receive a bill you are not expecting or do not understand. So that's that. And let's get into a little bit more. Let's get into, went over that. We make planning ahead. Human composting simple and straightforward with our prepaid funeral home. Why pre-compose? So this deals with payment and all that. I want to get into what it is I saw earlier on the site, though. Let's go here. So this, just a moment, you all. This is it right here. Here we go. So the process, right? Oh, this is cool. Environmental impact. Recompose utilizes the principles of nature to return bodies to the land, sequestering carbon and improving the health of our natural surroundings. Healing the climate. For every person who chooses Recompose, our conventional burial or cremation, 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide is prevented from entering the atmosphere. In addition, our approach to human composting requires 1/8 the energy of conventional burial or cremation. Recompose allows you to choose an end-of-life option that strengthens the environment rather than depleting it. Moving away from toxic practices. Current funerary practices are environmentally problematic. Each year, 2.7 million people die in the US, and most are buried in a conventional cemetery or cremated. This is part of what I was mentioning earlier about the casket approach, but they're getting into even, cremation might be an issue for several reasons. But cremation burns fossil fuels and emits carbon dioxide and particulates into the atmosphere. Conventional burial consumes valuable urban land, pollutes the soil, and contributes to climate change through resource-intensive manufacture and transport of caskets, headstones, and grave liners. The overall environmental impact of conventional burial and cremation is about the same. Interesting. We're learning together. Creating soil health. The breakdown of organic matter is an essential component in the cycle that allows the death of one organism to nurture the life of another. Soil is the foundation of a healthy ecosystem. It filters water, provides nutrients to plants, sequesters carbon, and helps regulate global temperature. And so as we go down the process, the graphic below illustrates how the Recompose approach to human composting works. Microbes, oxygen, and plant matter combine to gently convert human remains into soil. Phase 1. Cycle begins. Natural organic reduction, NOR, also known as human composting, is powered by beneficial microbes that occur naturally in our bodies and in the environment. Phase 2. The laying in. Our staff lay the body in a vessel surrounded by wood chips, alfalfa, and straw. The vessel is closed and the transformation into soil begins. Phase 3. The vessel. The body and the plant material remain in the vessel for 30 days. Microbes power change on the molecular level, resulting in the formation of a nutrient-dense soil. Phase 4. The soil. Each body creates 1 cubic yard of soil amendment. Composting, that's what composting is, a soil amendment, which is removed from the vessel and allowed to cure for 2 to 6 weeks. As we say here, Strongs. Once completed, it can be used to enrich conservation land, forest, or gardens. Phase 5, the final phase. Life after death. The soil created returns the nutrients from our bodies to the natural world. It restores forests, sequesters carbon, and nourishes new life. We've said that a few times. So that's the process. There's more to view here. There's more to view here. I wanted to let's see something. There were some pictures that I saw earlier. Here we go. So this gets into the forest. So after we go through the phases, each body that completes the Recompose process creates 1 cubic yard of nutrient-rich soil amendment. We offer the opportunity to donate the soil to Bell's Mountain, a 700-acre nonprofit land trust in Southern Washington. Land trusts are super important, you all. Do the research. Um, Bell's Mountain, that's information right there. The forest needs you. The location, this is the office space. Seattle, as you see, the laying in. We read through and went over some of that. The vessels, as you can see, pods, and some fact answered questions that you can view at your leisure. You can subscribe to the newsletter, give them a call, send them an email, and take it from there. So this is something to consider, definitely something to consider. So that is Recompose. And with that, we're going to compose ourselves because that was a lot for sure. And we're going to let's do this. Where are we at? Right there. Is that where we're at? All right. And to finish things, close things out, this is a longer broadcast, I know, but we made it through because this is a very, very important topic matter. Let's centralize that. And so, I don't want to just leave you there. This is a communal effort because, we're addressing something very sacred. And I want you to ask yourself, and I'm asking you, what comes up for you when thinking about this topic matter in general, when thinking about death and transition in general? How do you feel? Do you feel fearful? Do you feel excited? Do you feel concerned? Do you feel curious? Do you feel at peace with that process? Are you not thinking about it because you're so focusing on life? What comes up for you when you think about how you want your body to be handled upon your physical death? Is this the best method for you? Is there another method that we didn't go over out of these, 5 to 6 methods that we went over? Is there another method? Make sure that it's done wholesomely, safety first, and legally. So we want to stay within the realm of legality. We don't want to be doing something that is illegal because that can cause a bigger problem for your loved ones, for your community, for your neighborhood, for you, even upon your passing. So do within the realms of legality. All right. Plan this out during your life. Plan this out during your living life so that you can then focus on living your life to the fullest. As I say, plan for the worst, but expect the best. Now, death is not the worst, but for a lot of us in our psyche, the end of our life is not a good thing overall. And the beginning of our life is a great thing. So that's how most of our minds view it. And so I say, upon your passing, things can get ugly in the sense that if you don't plan appropriately in terms of a last will and testament, insurance, life insurance, DNR form, if that's your choice, do not resuscitate or do so, who gets what, getting your finances in order, and how, again, you choose to be handled, how you choose for your body to be handled upon your passing, which is the premise of this particular broadcast and what it is we're going over. If you don't handle that appropriately, it can be the worst for your loved ones. They're already dealing with your passing, and then to deal with all of what comes with that can be very, very draining and challenging. And so you don't want that to be the case. You want to get ahead of it and plan appropriately while you're still alive and living. That's why we say in your living life, plan appropriately so that and plan for the worst not happening so that you can then live your life to the fullest, and have less weight off your shoulders and be, more focused in on being your best and living your best life. So yeah, the conversation continues. And that's where we will leave it. And so, death and decomposition equals more life because we're keeping the cycle and the circle of life going. From the soil we came, from the soil we shall return, from the soil we get our nourishment. Or if we eat animals, the animals eat what comes out of the soil, and or they eat and we eat what comes out of the soil, comes out of the earth. And so it's a cycle. And so let's keep that cycle going. So death and decomposition, not necessarily a bad thing because it equals more life. And for now, focusing on more of your life. And so with that being said, we're going to go out in a very, very similar way that we came in. And that's with some good tunes. So thank you all for your time and your attention. May you enjoy the rest of your day and evening, and start that conversation with yourself first. Start it with your family first. Whatever works best for you. I say start it with your family or your loved ones first and branch out from there. And do it in a loving way as best you can and have that support there. And just know that, think about your death coming no time soon. But again, planning for that so that you can best live your life and be your best. So that's what it's about. I want to thank you for your time and your attention. And until next time, just be good. Be in love and be in life. All right? Be in love, be in life. And we shall move forward. So thank you again. Peace and love. Akhmostist the Compostist, Composting Causations.